Hello, everybody. Raven Knight here, and joining me today is ABreakNRun, owner of the For Honor Tavern. He has graciously agreed to join me today for a little interview. We're just going to be chatting back and forth, getting to know one another a little bit, because I feel like there are a lot of content creators in the For Honor community, and I think it'd be really awesome if we tried to get to know each other a little bit more. I've done an interview previously with Havoc and also with General Fuji Kyo, and I'm honored to have ABreakNRun with me today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, my friend.
Thank
And
you.
I'm not the owner of the For Honor Tavern. It's just my stream looks like a tavern.
Ah, I gotcha. I always just assumed that you were the owner, man, because in every one of your videos that starts off, I just see that tavern and then the bottle goes flying out of it. So
Oh yeah.
that was my first assumption. But great to have you on. So, what we're going to be doing today, guys, is like I said, this is an interview between the two of us. We've both set aside some questions we want to ask each other. And I'll go first. I'll start the interview process and I'll ask you, break and run some questions. What I'd like to start with, let me pull up my sheet here because I wrote all these down so that I was all prepared, you know. First question. Yeah, I'm bad about that. So, first question. This is something I'm kind of been wondering. The name A Break and Run. I love it, but is there a story behind it?
Yes, there is actually. So, what a break and run is a pool term.
Okay.
For me, I used to play billiards when I was a kid, and I grew up playing billiards and like learning the game of pool. And when I got out of the military, before I started playing For Honor and making content, I played in pool tournaments to help out my family
Ah,
and to pay some debts off. But what the name of Break and Run is it's a pool term that, like whenever you start a game of pool, you break, you make a ball, and it's still your go. And then let's just say after I make that ball and I continue to keep going, I make every other ball in, sink my 8 ball or my 9 ball or whichever game we're playing, and you don't get a chance to touch the table. That is a term that we call a break and run.
gotcha. That makes sense.
So I took Yeah, so I took my name and I pretty much just made it a cooler version of it so that, it's more noticeable. People won't use that style of writing for like for pool tournaments and stuff like that.
Have you ever gotten a break and run in one of your tournaments?
Oh yes.
Excellent, excellent. I used to play pool with my cousins, so I know how to play. I won't ever say I was that good, but still, that's awesome. I did not know that. I learned something new today. My,
Oh yeah.
my second question. So I think every For Honor content creator gets asked this. What got you into playing For Honor in the first place? What drew you to it?
What initially drew me into playing For Honor was I had a friend of mine who we were playing Monster Hunter World, and we were friends for years and years, and he was coming down with he was losing his eyesight due to diabetes.
Oh no.
And it would get to a point where like we would play Monster Hunter World together, and I would be like pinging all over the place so that he can follow the pings because he couldn't see me, the character, and he couldn't find the monster. So I'd just be sitting there like, come on, like dragging him along. And he's like, hey man, you got to check out this game. It's out for free on Xbox. Like, it's on Xbox Gold. You'll play it. You'll love it. And I started playing the game ever since then. And it's such a unique game that has that has grabbed my attention so much.
Oh, same, same. So that leads right into my third question, actually. So once you started playing, what made you want to make content for the game? What led to that?
What originally happened was I was originally a Goki main because I was protecting my friend. Because usually in most games I play a more supporting role.
Okay.
Um, and what ended up happening was the Wulin came out, and I wanted to pick one of the Wulin characters as my new quote unquote main. And everyone was playing Tiandi, JJ, Shaolin, but no one was playing Nusha. And I started playing Nusha, and I was then seen by Mr. King Angelus,
Right.
and he spotted me because I was really close to hitting rep 60, and I was really close to being the number one Nusha on Xbox back then when we didn't have cross platform play. So I was number 3 in the world, number 1 on Xbox, and then we did a video with me against Hulk's JJ, and it was like 11 o'clock in the morning when I was sleeping at like when I was usually sleeping around that time because I would sleep during the day, be up at night to take care of my grandmother.
Okay.
And people started saying, "Oh, this is the number one Nuxia's. This guy is horrible." And I said, "Well, you know what? I'm gonna stream, put up or shut up." And we started streaming. We got a good amount of viewers in there, and it was another avenue that I did. So I started streaming to stay awake, so I could be there for my mother and my grandmother, because my grandmother's going through Alzheimer's and dementia. So I was like their quote unquote ambulance driver, so we didn't have to pay a medical bill for the ambulance.
That is
And
it's a whole lot right there. Holy crap.
yeah, and then that all started off with like I was also working at the pool hall at the time, and the pool hall decided that they didn't want me anymore because I had to take time off to take care of my grandmother, and I started playing pool to make sure I would be able to take care of stuff, and I wasn't able to do as many pool tournaments because my grandmother was getting worse and worse. So then I decided, well, the stream went really well. Let's try to make content for it, and here we are, 5 years later.
And here we are. That is all. Actually, believe it or not, one of the questions I was going to ask, so we can go ahead and go to it. You were considered one of the top ranked Nuxia, and you kind of answered this, but I was going to ask, why did Nuxia appeal to you? So was it just because she was the only Wulin people weren't playing, or was there something else about her that really jumped?
Oh
out
no,
at you?
there were multiple things. For me, it was a character that was very niche to play, that not a lot of people understood how to play the hero. And I was always a big fan of Cabal back in Mortal Kombat days of my youth.
Right.
So I was always a big fan of the hook blades, and the way that I play her is more along the lines of like a low health Goki, where like she can still like swing you around. She can still do a crap ton of damage, but it was just that niche. Also, like at the very final attack, you throw them into a wall, you get extra damage, and she's brutal if you get her correct.
Oh, yeah, I agreed there. She's awesome. I really love Nuxia, but I feel like the thing that always appealed to me about Nuxia was her traps, which I just love playing with people's minds with those. That's what gets to me, because it goes against their preconceived notion of block to avoid damage, and I love that. I love messing with people. Did you hear a lot of people say that Nuxia's a broken character, that she's going against the rules of the game? Because that's what I heard a lot of in Nuxia's early days.
Actually, no. I heard a lot of people back in the early days. It was the character is nothing but lights. The traps don't work because if you go for a light parry, the trap just goes through and you take a heavy to the face. But the whole concept of her is just to like mess with people's minds, to get them to block when you're not thinking about blocking, throwing out, letting heavies fly, making them choose what is your fate.
That's what I love about her. Like, absolutely, it was so unique when you and I were playing the early access. We'd both been playing Sohei. You decided to switch up to Nuxia, and it was then I was like, okay, I got dominated again and again and again. Like, it was crazy how good you were with Nuxia. But moving on to my next question. So, what has been the most rewarding aspect of making content and doing your For Honor Tavern and doing what you do on streams and videos and like that? What would you say is the most rewarding aspect?
I would say when it comes down to rewards, meeting wonderful people like you, like Havoc, people like Kenzo that I've worked with, Faram, I've worked with Daddy Law, Marco Yolo, a few other smaller streamers that I met when I was in my stream team back in the Mixer days where I started. And I've always been one of those people that people come to for advice, to look for guidance, to look for assistance in any which way, shape, or form. If you were to call me and say, hey, my car broke down in the middle of the night, I'd be like, where at? I'll come get you. And I would be on my way. I'd be already like partway out the door, just in my pajamas, chilling. Just driving down the highway. But also, I because of that, like having that like want and that um, fulfillment of helping people out in that situation, I would have loved to become like a teacher, but I
Yeah.
didn't. When I came out of the military, they just switched over to the whole like Common Core thing, so that was being pushed in colleges and whatnot. And it was very hard for me once I got out of the military to go back into college because I had to go through all the remedial stuff and relearn everything all over again.
Right.
So even video games, then I can get to that point of teaching people how to play smarter, not harder in video games, and bring more of the common back into common sense.
Right. Yeah, I can see that absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. And you've told me something like that before, where you're that kind of person who just really wants to help people, and people know to reach out to you. Which, believe it or not, I'm a little bit of that way. Just ever since I moved, I haven't had as many people who are willing to reach out like that. But tit for tat. Moving on. This is a question that I'm really excited to get to. Probably the question I've been building up to. So when we first talked, this was a while ago. You had said that one of your goals with content creation was to help kind of bring the content creators of For Honor together and kind of create a community where we could more easily interact and collaborate and work together to really build up this game's community content. So my question is, do you feel that you've been successful in that endeavor? And which content creators have you had the most fun interacting and collabing with? Because I've been to your Discord and I've seen a lot of content creators there. So you've gotten to work with and speak to a lot of folks. Do you feel that you've been successful, and who do you have fun working with?
I would say that I am and I am not successful.
Okay.
But there are many boundaries that go on with that. Many people that get into content creation are usually using that as an outlet to express themselves, to, make more connections and stuff of that sort. So a lot of content creators end up being very introverted with their content and with talking to other content creators, because they're like, oh, they just trying to get to me to get to my audience. And a lot of times whenever you're dealing with other bigger creators, you have to try to navigate that boundary of not having them think I'm just using you for your audience.
Yes.
And that I'm not using you for your content. I'm trying to be friendly. I'm trying to be more productive with the community to bring everyone together. And then also comes down to it, if they decide that they're going to, be the voice of the people, and some people that they have in their communities might be a little too toxic, it makes it harder for me to be able to reach out to them. Or if they are very like, oh, this character's overpowered, nerf this character, nerf that character, it makes it very hard to be able to play with those people because of their like indifferences with certain things, and they end up sounding like every other person on the internet.
Yeah.
And it does make it a lot harder to try to have civil conversations with some people.
Oh, I get that. Yeah.
But not everyone is like that in that regard. But I will say a lot of creators are very introverted. They like to keep to themselves, like to keep to their style of content. And once they have a friend, then they try to see if it goes anywhere. And if it doesn't, then they just go back to like their normal content again. Mm-hmm. And it ends up hurting a lot of people because you split so many people up in so many different communities, like sub communities in the majority community. But your second question of who some of the favorite creators that I've ever worked with, I would say right now I've loved working with you, especially during our early access situations.
Yes.
Some other creators like the Pepsi Centurion or King Spartan Warrior. Mm-hmm. He's always been a really fun guy. Chilling out with working with Freeze and John DeLiner.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, they're great.
Working on like again with early access stuff with them. Even working with Norgos, our For Honor announcer.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other creators that I love working with, and each one has their own specific style. And even then, like because of how I grew up, I'm able to be like very chameleon-y with it, trying to meld myself with their type of content. But it's having that understanding of going, oh, okay, we're making content for you. We can like chameleon to you. I would say the hardest thing is having people like work with me on content because I'm very educational, very strategical in my content.
I get
And
that. Yeah.
sometimes the like bleeding of like, oh, this character sucks, or God, I can't like they're not thinking more strategically, or they're not taking any of my advice. It makes it harder to make my style of content, I will say.
I get you. Yeah. Okay. And that does answer that, and that's really awesome. I know some of those content creators. I've gotten to work with John and Freeze before. They're great guys, really are. Hopefully, one day I can get to interview them sometime. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now, I got three more questions for you to kind of wear us down,
Oh,
but
perfectly.
you'll like these. So for the first one that I want to ask is, what do you want For Honor to do either later this year or into year 9? Like, what would you like to see For Honor do?
Ooh, what I what I would like to see For Honor do, and this is actually a little personal to me.
Oh, sure. No problem.
Um, but I would love to be able to have more of a like more creators talking to like the developers a little bit more of like an open like an olive branch to be able to contact them and have conversations with them and get more involved in the process.
Mm.
uh, Especially with a lot of what I have seen with For Honor, and them working on a lot of the game mechanics of the game. um, I feel like we're moving closer to a possible second title,
Oh, that'd be sick.
just because they're working on the mechanics, working on making the game feel better, and not so worried about the heroes, but more worried about like the mechanics of the game, how they've been working on the pin system, the damage reduction, making sure that certain things in the game are working properly. And I feel like, especially since they've worked on that pin system, the GB system, that we can be heading towards that second title, and it's very optimistic to me.
Oh, that'd be great. I would be so excited if we went to the second title. That'd be fantastic. So that leads into the next question. If For Honor were to ever shut down its servers for whatever reason, what do you see your channel doing in the future? I'm not saying it will. I'm saying if it
Yeah.
were, what would you end up doing?
When it comes down to that, I think I would move on to more along the lines of like, since we are like, I have been like partnered with Ubisoft, I'd probably move towards like another Ubisoft title. Either they come up with something new, or like the X Defiant I've been having a lot of fun with when I've been doing their stuff with
Right.
X Defiant.
Hmm.
Um, I also have a lot of fun in like Souls types of games, so I might move towards something of that nature. But I'm always been like a fighting game person at heart, so I would probably also try to sprinkle in some like Street Fighter, a little bit of Tekken, and try to like either get myself in that regard or move towards even like a Smite 2,
Oh, that'd be cool.
because that's coming out very soon.
Yes, that'd be awesome. I've heard about. I've been keeping an eye on Smite too. So last question. This is a question I get asked a lot from people in streams, and I'd love your answer to this. Say that there was someone else who was just getting started on content creation with For Honor, or just brand new to the game. What advice would you give someone who is brand new to For Honor or content creation? What would you say to them if they wanted your advice?
So when I get asked this question actually quite a bit on stream, and even in my like comment section and stuff like that. When it comes down to wanting, like, are you talking about just content creation in general, or are you just talking about like For Honor in general?
Well, usually their question starts with, I'm new to For Honor. I want to get better at the game. What advice do you have? I'd give them advice, and then they'd say, and I also want to make content for it. So then after each
So
of that.
I would say when it comes to players that are new to For Honor, um, I usually suggest as like a starting hero to play as Warlord.
Hmm.
The reason why I tell them to try to play as Warlord is that he has a lot of mechanics in the game that could be used and learned from a person who's brand new at the game. Like his crush encounters, he has hyper armor, he has a full block, has a pretty good bash. Not the best offense in the world, but at least he has a lot of mechanics that he can use, and I use it as a platform for them to learn the mechanics rather than just playing a hero that is quote unquote brain dead or really easy to fight as, and to get them on like a fast track to just spamming buttons.
Right.
For Honor is not a game of spamming buttons. It's about playing more strategically, learning how to keep your health and your stamina managed, being able to help out in team fights, understand the small game mechanics that even the game doesn't teach you, like external guarding, how external guarding works with unblockables, how whenever you're unlocked to someone and someone throws an attack and you dodge towards them, you can deflect if you have a character that has a deflect. And all of the like small itty bitty portions of the mechanics of the system where I could teach them that first and then move them on to another character. When it comes to picking a quote unquote main, the best thing I tell everyone is to pick a character that you like to see first. Like you have to vibe with that character. If you like the katana, you can always go with like Orochi, Aramusha, Kensei of those natures. But finding a character that fits you as a person is probably the best thing, just because you can work on the customization, work on getting better with that hero in the beginning. And also you can try out every hero for free in the training arena before you buy them with steel or with real money. So it makes it a lot easier for people to even take those characters into the training arena, learn those heroes, use the hero tactics, use the tutorials to get everything like the bare minimum down, and to just work on finding, at least playing one hero, every hero to at least rep one, just so you can kind of get a hold of what everyone's doing. What would you do in this situation? How would you counter that? And that's how you kind of have to play that. And understanding the person behind the character, the person that you're playing against, through their representation in For Honor.
That's a good answer. I like that. So to wrap that up, let's say that someone wanted to get into content creation in general, not necessarily just for Honor, but in general, wanted to be a content creator on YouTube or Twitch or what have you. What would you recommend to them?
I would recommend, first off, to start off, if you want to mimic someone, you can, but you do have to find your own style. And whenever you're starting off with content creation, start off with making it a hobby first. That is one of the biggest things I've seen a lot of people like mess up on. They'll go ahead and they'll buy a webcam and a nice computer and 2 monitors and a desk that they really don't have a spot for, and they'll realize, oh, I'm not doing the best, or I'm not doing as good as I would want to, and then everything gets thrown to the side and it's thousands of dollars you just spent for nothing.
Right.
Start with bare minimum of just showing your gameplay and seeing if people are interested in how well you play the game. Find a niche that maybe someone hasn't already done yet, and being able to give your advice and your video editing skills to that task. Making friends with other content creators by being in their community, showing up to their streams, talking, being a human on the internet.
Yes.
But
just
it's
being
just
a human.
yeah, because a lot of us nowadays, we pick up a go into a Twitch stream and everyone makes it feel like it's like an LFG, a looking for group, or that they're just going to ask questions there and not be a part of the community. Like, don't be weird. Don't just come in like trying to either interrogate me or to try to leech off of me. Don't try to be, toxic or, rude in chat. You're just being a human being, making connections with people that like a content creator that you like as well. And again, as it being a hobby, it makes it easier for you to then, once you start get going, when you start the wheels in motion, then you could start using that money that you earn from content creation to make your content better.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And that goes quite along with what I usually answer as well. But that is all my questions. So thank you so much for answering those. A break and run really means a lot, and I hope that you, my audience, enjoyed hearing his answers. But now I give the floor to you. If you have anything you'd like to ask, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Of course. And as well for your audience as well, I have also created a few questions for him, for
Fantastic.
Mr. Raven here. So it's my turn now to interrogate him for you.
Excellent, excellent.
So we'll start off slow and we'll pick up.
Okay.
Us being gamers and being human beings, what game is your favorite game that you have ever played? And it doesn't have to be a video game. It could be a board game, card game, just whichever thing really you enjoyed the most.
Oh man, that's a great question. I when I was a little kid, obviously, playing pretend was my big thing. I was very imaginative, and some wouldn't consider that a game. For me, it was not just a game; it was every day. Like if I could, I'd be outside running around in the yard pretending I was something I wasn't. A knight, a superhero, what have you. So I spent all my time pretending I was someone else or pretending I was something else somewhere else. The first video game I got, me and my brother were given a PlayStation 2 as a present. I think we were both in early middle school. And we took turns playing the game, and the first game that I really fell in love with was the Sly Cooper series, which I think I played religiously. I think I played those games over and over and over again because it wasn't pretend anymore. I could, through these video games, be someone else in another place doing other things. But that really didn't jump out to me until I played my favorite video game of all time, which leads into the answer to your question, probably Skyrim. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. And I know that's a cliche answer because everyone loves Skyrim, but genuinely, I had never played an RPG game before. I'd never played Elder Scrolls before. I had no understanding of what that was, but the size of the world that it gave, the rustic feel, the character creation, the choice of quest lines and all these other, it was a never-ending source of entertainment. And I think I dumped so many hours into Skyrim, it's kind of scary. I haven't dumped in hours like that into a game other than For Honor, and I still play Skyrim to this day, so that gives you an idea. Even without mods, I still play Skyrim with mods, without mods. It's just a game that I was obsessed with. So as far as my favorite games overall, pretend, being somewhere or something I wasn't. But I took that love for playing pretend and put it into playing video games where I could just jump into a whole new world, whole new place. And that's why Skyrim really appealed to me.
Yeah, see, I never played any of the Elden Scrolls.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, I never got into it. For me, I started off initially with like a Super NES. So I was old school. Like I played like the original first Yoshi story, like from back in the day, and I still have that system to this day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I had like an N64, I had Xbox, and we did a little PlayStation a little bit, but I mainly pushed myself towards towards the Xbox side later on in my life.
Gotcha.
But I would say probably like going off of your answer, like for me when I was a kid, my mother really loved to play backgammon with me.
Oh, all right.
We would play backgammon quite a bit.
Yeah, I actually played that with my mom when I was little. So
it was always backgammon, gin, and Scrabble. That's all we played.
My dad taught me how to play chess when I was in elementary school, so I remember playing that a lot. But the problem was there was no one my age who played or was good at it. So quite often it wasn't that entertaining because anytime I played someone, I ended up winning. I'm not trying to brag. Like it's just something that happened. Like people just stopped playing with me because I knew how to play so well, and I thank my dad for that. So
next video, Break Run versus Raven Knight in chess.
Hey, here we go. That'll be fun. I haven't played in a while. I'm a bit rusty, so you might do better than you think.
Maybe.
But anyway.
So I'm going up off of that as well, since we did bring up like our younger years. Growing up, what was your childhood dream of what you wanted to do when you grew up?
Ooh. Oh wow. Well, Like I said, I played pretend, and one of the things I pretended to be was a superhero, but obviously I'm not about to get bitten by a radioactive spider or anything.
Mm.
So my dream was to be a crime fighter. I kind of wanted to be a police officer because I wanted to do the right thing, help people, be a supportive member of the community, or be a soldier, fight the wars for my country. But as I grew older, I began to realize that my interests were deviating away from that more and more as I learned about the wider world. And I think that I changed my career plan so many times as a kid, but I distinctly remember really leaning into being a crime fighter or soldier or someone who fought for other people, who helped people. Because that's what weird as it sounds, I was kind of a selfless kid. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be supportive. That came from just a family that really encouraged me to, look out for everyone else. And that's where I spent most of my childhood, being active in that. That changed to me being a teacher, obviously. I ended up going into the teaching field, and I still helped people through that. But I didn't want to be a teacher until I was in college. That was when I changed that to that career path.
Yeah.
So that was what I
All
wanted
right.
to be.
So during our previous talks, you told me you did martial arts in the past, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Which of the many styles was your main discipline, and which was your favorite
Oh, that's a great question.
during your journey?
Well, I got started in my martial arts career going to a karate studio when I was a little kid because I was bullied and I wanted to learn a self-defense system that would help me. The problem was all the bullies from my school went to the same karate dojo. So I was going from one bullying location right to another. So that didn't work out. I left there after like half a year. I just couldn't take it anymore. I made some friends, and I met my pastor, who was I think a third degree black belt, and he taught me some tricks and moves, of course, to help myself. But I didn't get back into martial arts until I was about in high school, and then I took some taekwondo. I learned some judo. I learned some kung fu, a little bit of everything, but I didn't find anything that really fit with me until I hit college, and I found an MMA gym where there was a master there who was from Thailand who specifically taught Muay Thai. And I wanted to train under him because he was a very nice fellow and he really got a liking to me. I came to like him too. And he trained me in Muay Thai, which I really, really gravitated towards. He taught me very early on what Muay Thai was all about. And I learned it's probably one of the easiest disciplines out there to learn because I think I got a hang of almost all the techniques in like a handful of months. After that, it was endurance training. It was strength training. It was just getting into the ring and fighting. Like, he put me in so many painful situations. He was the kind of guy who, I would take a stance. He'd be teaching me a tiplan, which is a low kick, and I'd do it, and he'd go, "No, you did it wrong," and then he'd do it to me, and I just fall to the ground because he just had this mean kick. But gosh, I did that for a couple years. I fought in 2 tournaments, was runner-up in one of them. I had such a great time. It was painful. I got to know the people in the doctor's office very well because I was always getting some injury or another. But it was, gosh, that was great. Muay Thai, and even after I moved away and I couldn't go to the gym anymore, I still kept practicing and training, and I looked for other MMA gyms where I could keep up the training. And though I did do a little bit of the jiu-jitsu and grappling in MMA, and I did participate in MMA fighting, Muay Thai was what I really stuck with. Just that was what my muscle memory remembers, and it's what I stick to mostly. So of all the disciplines I've trained in, Muay Thai is the one that I enjoyed the most and I really stick with.
Okay. And since we were talking about our the martial arts and stuff like that, not just limiting to for honor weapons. If you could choose any weapon to go into battle with, what would you pick and why? And like, what really fits you as like for that weapon?
Well, assuming it's medieval combat and there are no guns involved, because for
We're
gun,
talking about anything,
oh,
anything from from the days of beginning to now.
okay. Well, as for like, so I'll break this into two answers, because if we're talking about like just pure on medieval combat, I would choose a longsword. I find that the longsword, like kind of what like Warden has, I actually own a longsword, beautiful weapon, and it's so versatile. I've actually had the opportunity to try a katana and a longsword, and after trying both swords out and testing their versatility, their weight, how they handle, I do prefer the longsword. I think the katana is a beautiful weapon, but the longsword to me is this weapon that just stands the test of time. Its design is perfectly suited, I think, to not only dueling situations where it's a one-on-one situation, but it has enough reach to keep a lot of people back at one time. It's double-edged, so that means that both sides are dangerous. And you know what? I think there's something that goes into just the feel of it, and I just feel comfortable holding a long sword. Now, as for today, obviously going into a battlefield today, a sword's not going to be of great use, although I wish it was. I'd love to run into a battlefield today with a sword and just, be that guy, but I actually love revolvers. My granddad owned this small revolver, and it was bequeathed to me on a Christmas 3 years ago after my grandfather passed away. And so I've always had this taste for revolvers. So I think that I would run, if I were to pick a gun, I would choose a revolver. A very nice revolver weapon. But I'm not as well versed in guns as my brother is. He's far more knowledgeable on them than I am. But me, I was a medieval combat historian and aficionado. So I guess that would be my answer. Give me a long sword in one hand and a revolver in the other.
All right. Yeah, for me, I'm more of like one of my favorite like weapons ever made was like, especially when it comes to like the gun category, is probably the like M60, or they used to call it the pig. For me, I just love the way that it's like a slower firing light machine gun, and it's more of like a suppressive fire type of like weapon. But for me, I love the way that it fires. I love the way that it the way the cadence is just very, very nice. It's not like it's
Right.
not just one shot. It just has a nice cadence to it. And having that protection, having someone with that weapon covering you, you're going to be okay.
It's funny, sometimes it's about the feel. Like I said, it's about the feel. Sometimes the sound as well. Like, for
Hmm.
example, me and my brother were talking about rifles the other day, and he told me, and we were talking about the M1 Garand, and it's an old rifle, but the satisfying sound that it makes, just there's something about the sound of a gun either releasing the pin or firing. Like, I love the sound of an AR-15 firing. I don't know what it is, but the sound of an AR-15 unloading to me just sounds really good. So that's just me, but that's just me.
Yeah. And see, with me, if I were to go into like combat, for me, like medieval combat, I'd probably go with shield and flail.
Fair. A shield and flail is a good combination. I would argue you would need the shield with the flail because of the way the flail functions. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I can see that.
So for those who don't know, our very first meeting was during the early access of the Yorigumo event.
Yes.
And we had many talks about like the lore of Sun Wukong and how well they did the Sun Wukong skin in For Honor.
Yes.
Is that your favorite story in Mythology, or do you have another that takes the number one spot?
Ooh. Well, I was an avid reader of Journey to the West. That was one of my favorite pieces of literature because it's not an easy piece of literature to read. So I would argue that yes, Sun Wukong and the Journey to the West is one of my favorites out there. But to be 100% fair, I think my favorite mythological figure, if it was not Sun Wukong, would be Beowulf. Because Beowulf was another story that I read when I was in school, and that stuck out to me. But, looking back on it now, Journey to the West is a much longer story than Beowulf, and so I spent more time with it. So yeah, I would say that it is likely that though Beowulf was my first big enjoyable mythos, yeah, Sun Wukong may have taken the top spot for me because of just all the time I spent with the character and with the journey. So yeah, that might be fair to say that that Journey to the West is one of my favorite mythological stories.
Oh, there you go. See,
Yeah.
for me, I've always been a fan of Irish mythology.
Oh, okay.
Just
Like,
because there's a lot of the mythology that is inside of like Irish mythology is either told down from like generation to generation,
mhm.
or some of the most of the books that talk about the mythology are missing.
Right, right.
So it gives more of an intrigue to the characters. Like for me, I've always been a fan of like Maman, who is the pretty much like the Poseidon of the Irish.
Hmm.
And he rules over like quite a few things. Also, the story of the Morrigan is always a very favorite one of mine.
Well, I'm not as familiar with Irish mythology. I think the only Celtic or Irish legend I'm familiar with is Cuchulainn, or is that Scottish? I forget now.
Cuchulainn.
Cuchulainn.
Yeah, but Cuchulainn actually goes through the story of Morrigan as well. They intertwine.
Oh, really? I did not know
Yeah,
that.
when Cuchulainn died, before Cuchulainn died, and he spent, I believe it was his fourth day, stopping like all the army, like stopping the incoming army from crossing this one bridge. He actually crossed the Morrigan, and one of the stories of the Morrigan is if you see the Morrigan or see an old lady near a river washing an armor set or piece or clothing that looks like yours, that day you're going to, fall in
Mm.
battle.
Oh my gosh, I need to reread this. I need to reread these because
Oh, it's a great story.
yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
Absolutely great story.
I'm gonna look that up. That actually sounds really interesting.
And then also, since we're talking about a lot about like history and mythology and stuff like that, what part of history intrigues you the most? Is it like the architecture, the mythology, the military strategies, technologies, cultural traditions?
Um, that's an excellent question. I think what intrigues me most about history are, for one thing, cultural traditions, definitely. I think that understanding culture is so vastly important to not only understanding history, but understanding the world. And I can give you an example. When I was in high school, I was taking a world history course, and we talked about American world history, European world history. We talked about Rome, Greece, all this stuff. We went all the way up to World War II, but only when we got to World War II did Japan even come up. And I was kind of like,
Mhm.
is that all we know Japan for? What they did in World War II? So I did independent research on Japan, and that led me to do research on China, and that led me to do research on Korea, and that led me to, and then I just built a new understanding, and I saw how different the cultures were from ours. And when I got to college, I got to meet lovely people from Korea, Japan, China, dated a few of them, and through them, I realized, man, the worlds y'all come from are so different, and learning about their history and about how those cultures came to be, because I believe history shows us how we are today. We wouldn't be who we
Mhm.
are without our ancestors. So cultural traditions and cultural upbringing, I think, is what fascinates me most. Why did the Japanese have seppuku? Why did the Chinese go through all these different dynasties? Why does Germany seem to be the whipping boy of Europe? Why does France put so much stock into art? Why does, like, all these things? I want to know about it. But secondly, yes, military history also fascinates me too. But that also goes into culture, because I find it interesting how the Chinese wage war versus how the Romans wage war. My brother had a 3 hour long debate about what would happen if the Roman Empire fought the Ming Dynasty, and we discussed how that would work, how their cultures were different, how their economics would work, how their traction would work, like the way that they logistics would work. Where would they fight? Would they fight closer to Rome, closer to China? It was a fascinating discussion, and that's what history does to me. It makes me think about all these things, and not just war, but war is a big part of it, but trade, interaction, intermarriages, like alliances, treaties. I know that to some people that sounds nerdy and boring. To me, it is what I live for. So that to me is what jumps out at history the most.
Ah, I see. See, for me, it's always been about mythology. I've always been a big, like, proprietor of like different mythologies from all over the world,
Oh,
finding
sure.
their stories and how like some of these mythologies turn into their religions and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. And you can also see, jumping off of that, how mythologies are so intertwined with the culture.
Hmm.
Why Hercules, like, I remember watching this, it was a YouTube video, it was like a death battle, I think, between Sun Wukong and Hercules. And I thought the fight was so funny because I said, these two characters, there's no contest about who would win, and yet you recognize how the culture that created these fictional heroes created them to be who they are. Why Hercules couldn't beat Sun Wukong goes right into how the Chinese built Wukong versus how the Greeks and Romans and all them went into Hercules or Heracles or whichever one you want to call him.
Hmm.
But it's that all mythology ties all into that. It's so cool. It really is. It really is.
And actually, I don't know if you've ever watched it before, but something I can recommend to you. There was an anime that came out called The Record of Ragnarok.
Yes, I have seen
Oh,
that.
I love
It
it.
is so
Love it.
it is so entertaining. I love it. The fights themselves are very fun, but I love watching.
Hmm.
I love seeing these individuals show up. It's so cool.
So now we're going to get into some of the deep down and dirty ones.
Okay, all right, I'm ready.
Um, and you did ask me a similar question to this one, so I'll ask that one first.
Okay, sure.
If there was a For Honor 2, what would you like to see change from the first title, and what parts of the world represented?
Okay. That is a good question. If there was a For Honor 2, first of all, I want them to change the whole aspect of the faction war. I think that having one continent of Heathmore is a little constraining, especially when we're going to be involving things like the Outlanders. I think what would be a better idea is to spread out the world a little bit. Maybe give each faction their own continent. Like, instead of just one continent they're all fighting over, maybe it's almost like a game of Risk, if you've ever played that board game, just trying to
Hmm.
take each other's continent and take their resources and just prove that we're the best. I think that'd be a creative way. I think you could do that. I think that another thing we should do is, and this is going to sound weird, but we've had the Knights, Vikings, and Samurai and Wulin, and then you just have the Outlanders who are just this other. I think that what could be done is maybe start off the game with these few little continents that have the Knights, Samurai, and Vikings, but then open up new continents. Treat it almost like, if you've ever played Total War, treat it almost like Total War Warhammer, which my brother plays a lot
Hmm.
of. Expand this world and show the different people that live within this world, and you could update maybe the minions of different factions to look a little bit different. Maybe if you have a whole season dedicated to like what the Wulin are doing, maybe change the map to make it look like China is kind of pushing into other realms. Maybe have the faction war mean more than just simply you're gonna get some extra steel and maybe a neat little ornament at the end. Maybe have it be like, next season, let's say that the Wulin win a season. If the Wulin win a season, maybe have the next cosmetic that comes out for weapons have like a Wulin theme to it. Maybe there's like an incentive for you to try to get your faction to win, so you get some kind of cosmetic that goes along with your faction.
Hmm.
I think that'd be cool. And maybe if there's a season where the whole lore of the season is the Knights and the Samurai decide to unite against the Vikings, maybe have that play into the faction war. Maybe the Knights and the Samurai, their points go into their own expansion, but the Wulin form an alliance with the Vikings to fight back, so their points go into that expansion. Like, I think that they could play a lot more with that if they tried. And the other thing I would do, the only other thing is the Outlanders. I would say try to give them their own realms or areas that make them unique. Because I think that one of the things that bugs me about the Outlanders is they really are just and the rest. They're just the others. They're the ones that are they don't fit into any other faction. But I think it'd be cool if they had their own like little pockets. Like if you have a pirate, maybe give them a ship or something. Like, I don't know, give them something. They don't have to have their own continent, but give them something that makes it feel like, okay, they're involved. They're not just, just kind of thrown in there like, okay, we're going to toss this in there because we think it'd be cool. Um, it's not something that I'm sure how I would work out directly. I'm sure the things that I've suggested would be highly impossible to do, but those are the things I'd like to see.
Mm, okay. Um, so these other two, there it takes a little bit.
Okay.
So is there a project that you want to do, but maybe you've had a wall that you hit or some type of limitation that is stopping you from doing or pursuing this project when it comes to like content creation and whatnot?
Yes. One thing, like I said, I want to help people. And one thing that I really want to do in terms of helping people is I like to give advice or give my encouragement to people to try to help them. And right now we live in a time where things are kind of nuts, even we go to video games because we try to escape the craziness of the world, family members going through hard times, craziness politically, uncertainty. And I want to help encourage people to know that, you can move forward. And so I've actually been working on this very long video essay recently called Being a Man, and what I think it means to, stand up for yourself, be dependable, to get through the hard times, what it means historically, like how our ancestors looked at being men, being dependable members of society, versus what we see now, and how we can, be better and work ourselves up and, overcome the stresses and fears, and why it's not wrong to deal with these, but how we can better overcome them. And I've been working on this actually for a couple months now, writing up the script, rewriting it, doing research. The problem is I keep getting held off from it because every time I think I've got a general idea down, a part of me hesitates to keep going with it because, some people may not want to hear this. Some people may want to argue this, or some people may say, nah, that's old hat. Who are you to define what men should act like or men should be like? And I don't want animosity towards this video just because I want it to be something that people will look to and say, you know what, this is encouraging, this is supportive, this is something I may have needed to hear. And so I've got these two voices in my head. One saying, go forward with it because you're going to help someone and someone may need to hear this. But then another voice saying, you're only going to cause some dissension and some frustration and some anger. Because that's one thing I've noticed with my channel. One of the sad things about being a For Honor content creator is For Honor is what everyone knows you for. So when you branch off from For Honor to do something else, like if I do Dead by Daylight, or if I do writing content, or if I do my Bible studies, for example, there are going to be people who either completely ignore the content or say, really, you do this kind of content? You're a For Honor channel. I've actually had people say, like when I did my talk on Rainbow Six Siege, they said, this coming from a For Honor channel? And I'm like, I do more than that, so it's the two voices in my head that tell me to go and one says to not. And I think that's one of the biggest hindrances to my own work is setting limitations for myself, usually to make sure that what I create is meaningful, but also doesn't ruffle too many feathers. Although I know that's going to happen regardless of what I release.
I would say, in your regard, as my encouragement to you, I would say, in that sense, is a lot of the times, especially when we're trying to come up with the concept of something that is seen in multiple different ways. I would say in that sense, yes, we can go ahead and we can say our opinions, but to kind of shut out the haters or the people that would have animosity towards it, leave it opened, like open pathed. So like, yeah, this is where, what I have done, and I have also seen it done this way and this way and this way. And there are many other paths to get there. And have it mainly be like centered around one specific point of, instead of how being a man is what's the difference between a boy and a man, and making that open source so that people can still have their stories, so they have the opportunity to talk about what they want, like how they have gone through their progression in life, but also for you to not step all over maybe some other people that have been going through their stuff.
All right, that's. I'll take note of that real quick. Hold on, man. While I'm thinking about that, let me. I've got the PDF pulled up.
And also for us as content creators as well. Um, Nowadays, a lot of people they only do one specific type of content, and especially for us as For Honor creators, being a one of a kind style of game, it makes it very hard for us to branch off, especially with how YouTube does the algorithms nowadays, and they kind of pigeonhole us into one style of content.
Yes, for
That's
sure.
why a lot of people that find more success in other portion, like in other games, they find other games that are very similar, or they do something that could be done in both games, like the Dark Souls speedrunning community. How they can kind of play any Souls kind of game and still keep their community together because it's a speed run type of thing or a challenge run of that sort. For us, it's very hard to do that because of how people have like how because it's a very very niche game, it makes it very hard to bring other people into other games that might not like that because it's so out of the norm.
Right, and that is that is a fair point. I think, and I try not to let myself get too pigeonholed as well. One thing that it's funny. I was actually talking to my brother about this not too long ago. He says that though my For Honor content is what gets the most views, what I really am passionate about is my writing. Like I love telling stories and writing stories to share. So I spend actually a lot more time writing story concepts and drafts than I do even making For Honor content.
Mm.
So I would love to see my writing content grow a bit more. I tried making a second channel dedicated to that, but it didn't. It didn't take off. It didn't get a lot of attention. So I'm moving it all back to my main channel,
Hmm.
and so that has been one of the primary focuses I've been focusing on these last few weeks is getting all that moved over. So I guess it comes down to me trying to find that right balance of where I want to be because I asked you earlier if For Honor were to disappear, what would you do? I've had to ask myself that question too. If For Honor were to eventually go away, I want to still be able to make content on either other games like Dead by Daylight, Rainbow Six Siege, or Souls content, or I'd like to focus a lot on writing, giving writing advice, sharing stories, audiobooks, stuff like that. And so I'm trying to make sure that my channel reaches a wide audience and therefore could survive in the inevitable event that one of the games or things that I enjoy goes away. So that is also something that stays on my mind a lot.
Yeah, especially with me, like I've always had that problem because I started very late in the For Honor, like in the For Honor content creation game, back, like I said, right before the Wulin came, like when the Wulin came out and starting the year three, which right now my channel is very very small, but I have done a lot in the community, I would say. Um, and I've, like I said, I've asked myself that question quite a bit. Uh, but honestly, I feel like For Honor is definitely not a thing that is going to go away since it is so niche. I mean, it was Game of the Year for 2017.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I know a lot of people say like dead game won't last. Honestly, it's gone on this long.
People say that for every game, though.
Yeah, you get used to
Every
it.
game.
Every
Just like
game.
how nowadays in Overwatch, people have used the term skill diff or tank diff or, like GG no re, and they use these terms and throw them around so often that the meaning is lost to them.
Yeah,
Like
it's
they don't even mean what they want, what they're supposed to mean anymore.
exactly.
Like you don't, and it just makes everything feel so much worse because it's like, oh yeah, no, touch grass. Like that term has lost all of its meaning because people just use that like all nonchalant.
Yeah, and you know that the people who tell you to touch grass probably have never touched grass. So it's one
Mm.
of those things where It's just words thrown back and forth at people, and that's
Yeah,
all it's what
it's
counts.
it's the common missing in common sense.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Um, so this next question is kind of a pitch to you, I would say.
A pitch, okay.
A pitch. Have you ever thought of doing a D&D campaign with creators to expand your character's lore and implement other creators' lore into it?
Running a D, like when you say other creators, you mean like other like character creators or content creators, or
Yeah, I would say like other content creators, like let's say you wanted to do something where it's like you made up your own story with like your own NPCs that are in like your characters, like your creator lore in your on your channel, and then having like me playing another character and maybe even like Havoc playing another character and doing like a campaign with us so that you it would help with like writing, it would bring in a new direction and a new insight into like your storytelling,
that would
something
actually
of that
be
sort.
that would be awesome. Like I think that would be absolutely fantastic. I would love to do that. Um, it's funny. I kind of like the idea of taking, like, if let's say that when okay, so I'll use this as an example. When I've always known Havoc as a great player of For Honor, and he kind of had his niche warden look. Then along come Eris, who wrote that sort of short story for Havoc's warden, Ultor, and gave him a name. And I read the story, and I thought it was good, but it could be expanded on. So I wrote the expansion, and people really liked it. But I realized from there that Ultor, Havoc's warden, had now been given character, personality, a story. And so I thought if every content creator had just one character that they told a story around, or had a character that they really put their heart and soul into, and all these characters met, like, would they fight? Would they go off and do their own thing? Would they go on an
Hmm.
adventure? What would they do? And that would be a great story to tell. Um, I'd love to play with that idea. As for doing a D&D campaign out of it, if or something along those lines, if every one of the content creators were willing, yes, I would love to do that, and I would gladly be the DM to help lead that. Um,
Hmm. And then you could also do like other things as well. Like if you find a bunch of Dead by Daylight creators, you can have a Dead by Daylight campaign. Same thing with like Rainbow Six Siege and stuff like that.
I would need to find people who not only created their own characters though, but also knew how to play D&D and would be willing. But I would absolutely do that if given the
Well, it
opportunity.
would also go into the lines of as well as what you would have as rules. If you would, if you're in a like For Honor themed D&D, is it only going to be For Honor characters, or can it be your own character that you create
No, I mean if they wanted to
and
create their own
stuff like
character,
that?
I wouldn't
Well, I'm
even.
saying for you, like for you as well, like it would be easier for you to be able to build up this character. Like, let's say, hey, send me a picture of your character instead of drawing the hero. You can just have someone send their picture of their For Honor hero, or they make their own hero by drawing it.
Yeah, absolutely. If they have their own, like they don't have to make it in the game. If they drew their own picture and sent it to me, I wouldn't mind. No, I could do
Hmm.
something. And if they have a story already set aside for that character, I don't mind. So it would not bother me in the least. But that would be a really neat idea.
I figured it was like an idea I had in the back of my head. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll throw this to him and see if he swings,
Oh yeah,
see if he goes.
I think that'd be a cool idea. It's just organizing that would be the thing. But I would not mind that
Well,
at all.
even then, you don't even really have to come up with like a campaign for like a major group. Even if you wanted to, you can have like a storyline and just talk to other creators and be like, "What would you do in this situation?" And it would like give you like one of those like books where like you pick your own adventure,
Hmm.
but you're giving the person that you're working with the creative focus on going, I would like to do this instead, and then you go off on that branch and it goes on that portion of the story.
Well, what would be fun, I think, would be really cool. Like, let's say that it was me writing the story, and we were using a character that I created, a character that you created, a character that Havoc created, and say a character that I don't know, say John DeLiner created, just out of
Hmm.
hypothetical. And so I could write the story of these four characters, and then get to a point where like there's a big decision to be made, and I send you guys a message saying, hey, okay, so here's where we're at in the story, here's what's happened, what do you want to do? And then each of you give your response, and then I put your responses into the story and use that to direct where the story goes. That would be really fun. That would be a lot of fun. I would enjoy that.
And then I would say probably my final question to ask you, since it's probably the most controversial.
Okay.
Is that I know you are a man of faith.
Yes.
What lesson impacted you the most learned from your studies?
That's a good question. That is a very good question.
I figured I'd throw that sledgehammer at the end.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a very good one. And the reason it's a hard one to answer is because of how much I have learned from my faith and how much I've been taught. I think one thing that has stuck with me being a Christian and learning all that I have is that genuinely there is... I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this because I don't want to go off on a sermon. We only have so much time. But
oh, you're perfectly fine. See, viewers, I got them. Stumped them.
No, it's a good question. I think that the best way to say this is I believe that there genuinely is a God. Mm-hmm. And I think here's the thing: there are lots of people out there who claim to be faithful but don't believe in anything. You know, I was actually doing a Bible study last week talking about faith, and one thing that stood out to me was, you know, faith isn't just belief. You know, anyone can say they believe something, but faith is acting on that belief. Faith is treating that belief like it's true, like you believe it. You know, Peter got out of the boat and walked to Jesus. It would have been easy for him to say, "Oh yeah, Jesus could have had me walk on water if he wanted to," but you eventually have to step out of that boat. You have to take a leap or a step of faith. That's what makes it faith, not just belief. And to have faith, you have to know that God is real. And I think for a long time when I was a little kid, I just believed that God was real. I believed that there was a power. I believed that there was someone looking out for me. But I didn't always act on it. Opportunities for me to act on it, to speak to someone who needed to hear it, or change someone's life when they needed to have it changed. I didn't jump on it because, I didn't have enough faith to jump out at it. But over the years, I've seen how God has worked through me to impact other people, how God has used other people to impact me. And the more history I've learned, I think this is the coolest thing. Being a historian, learning all these historical incidents and times and dynasties and kingdoms, I've seen how God has shaped the world, shaped society, shaped our lives, to the point that when people say that it's all just happenstance or chance, I'm like, how can you say that? I think that what I've learned is there is a God. And secondly, and most importantly, this God loves so much. I have been greatly blessed, and I know that there are many people out there who have not been blessed the same way I am, and I want to take advantage of that blessing. I want to help people. I want to do good in other people's lives because God has done so much good in my life. And I would not have learned that had I not learned just how much God loves me, how much he's done for me, how much he's changed my life through the people around me and through how I interact with them. I think back to my dad and what he said to me. I once asked my dad, what do you think is the most important thing a man can do in his life? And he said, the most important thing can do is love his God and love his neighbor. That's the commandment Jesus gave, love the Lord, love your neighbor. And so I've learned to love others, to love God, to love myself, and to just practice that in everything I do. It's not always easy. It's not always what I want to do. There are times I don't want to love people. There are times I don't want to love God. Sometimes walking with God is the most painful thing in the world. And I can get angry with God. Oh gosh, I can. I've raved at God before during a prayer session. But at the same time, I can't bring myself to hate God or hate others, even times when I really, really want to. And I think that what I've learned most importantly is just how much love can be shared through that relationship with God, because God has done just so much. And it all started with me having faith in who God is and what he says he does. I know that that's a lot of Sunday school talk to some folks, but to me, it really does. It is the foundation of who I am and who I want to be. Whatever happens to me, whether I become one of the greatest YouTube content creators, whether I become a teacher overseas, whether I do end up becoming a superhero one day, I don't know. Point is, whatever I do and wherever I end up, I know that it is because God helped get me there, and it wouldn't have started if I didn't have this faith that I do. And so I think that's the best way I can answer that. Just, I can't give some silly answer like, oh, I learned to overcome adversity. I learned all that. No, I just learned how real God is to me and how much I owe to him for getting me to where I am and where I'll end up. So that, I think, is the best way I could answer that.
It's a perfect answer.
Appreciate that. But that was a hard one, definitely. That's one that I had not expected in this interview, but that's a great question. I think the funniest thing is people who know I'm a Christian or know that I'm a man of faith. It does happen sometimes in my streams where they'll ask me like spiritual questions, like why does God do this? What does the Bible say about that? That kind of stuff. No one's ever asked me what has God taught you or what has God said to you that meant the most, and that actually got me. So props to you, man. You caught me. But did you have any other questions, or is that?
No, that was all 10 of mine.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Before we go, again, I want to extend a big thank you to A Break and Run. Thank you for joining me. Had a great time, and I hope to do more interviews like this with folks in the future, and I hope to do more content with you in the future. I'm looking forward to doing more, especially as we go further into this year 8 of For Honor and beyond. You know, we'll get to see what else is out there, and I look forward to anytime we get to do stuff like early access. That was a lot of fun. And
as long as your computer has enough RAM this time,
it should. It absolutely should. Long story, guys. I'll tell you later on Discord. But anyway, as to you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I know it was a long one, but I had a lot of fun with it. If you haven't subscribed to A Break and Run's channel yet, well, please go do so. His link will be in the description of the video. Go check it out. And also, just go give him some love. Like his videos. He makes some really great content, and he streams very regularly. Do you actually have a stream schedule, sir, that you'd like to share?
I stream from 5 to 10 Eastern Standard, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard, except Tuesdays.
Except Tuesdays. Okay, so Tuesday's the one day he's not doing it. So as long as I'm not streaming, go check out A Break and Run stream. Would love to see you there. Absolutely. I sometimes pop in to say hi to him. So definitely you'll catch me there. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.